me show you some numbers because this is going to blow your mind. Shout out to my friend Bill who sent me these numbers because this was something I wasn't thinking about, but he put it on the radar. Ask yourself this question. How many followers does Joe Biden have on Facebook versus Donald Trump? I want you to think about it. Ponder it real quick. Okay, it's enough pondering. Donald Trump has 1.3 million followers on Facebook. Guess how many Joe Biden has? 266,000. 1.3 million versus 266,000. We'll keep going, and then I'll tell you why all of this stuff makes sense in the end. Let's go to Twitter. How many followers do you think Donald Trump has? And then how many followers do you think Joe Biden has? I'm going to give you a little second to think it through. You can phone a friend. I don't know what you need to do, but we'll go through this. Donald Trump is smoking Joe Biden on Twitter as far as influence and followers. Donald Trump has 87 million followers on the Twitters. Joe Biden has 10,000 followers on the Twitter. And if you don't believe me, I got the paper right here. Look, I printed it out. That's his verified account. Verified.
So here are some of the numbers from the exit polls. And again, these are absolutely stunning. I mean, these are astonishing numbers from the exit polls. So Trump won men. This is the New York Times exit polling. Trump won men 49-48. He lost women by 13. Okay, that was perfectly predictable. That was the only predictable part of the night. He won 57% of the white vote versus 42% for Joe Biden. Among black Americans, there was some early data that suggested that he may have won in places like Florida up to 14 or 15% of the black vote. Even by the New York Times estimate, he won 12% of the black vote. Okay, last time around, he won, I believe, 7% of the black vote. So he radically improved his showing among black Americans. He radically improved his showing among Hispanic Americans. He won 32% of the Hispanic vote. He won 31% of the Asian vote. Okay, these are not numbers that the media were even close to expecting, right? He improved his share with black men, black women. He improved his share with elderly Americans. I'm sorry, he didn't improve his share with elderly Americans, but he held them. He improved his share with virtually every demographic subgroup in the United States with the exception of white men. I am not joking. That is a thing that happened last night. Okay, and maybe what that says is that Americans want to be campaigned to as individuals. See, here's the thing about Trump. He cuts through this group identity crap because everybody has an individual opinion of Donald Trump. Nobody has the image of Donald Trump that is written on the wall by the media about Trump. I've been very critical of Trump's use of Twitter. I'm very critical of some of the things that I think Trump has said that are wrong. But it is absolutely true that he has a unique connection with American voters because he is so prominent, because everybody knew who Donald Trump was before he ran. It made it very difficult for the media ever to box him in or paint him as exactly what they wanted him to be. And this is reflected in a lot of these exit polling results. I mean, people should feel astonished by this. They should feel shocked by this, and they should feel really optimistic about all of this. Because what this means is that the demographic stranglehold that we were told Democrats have on Hispanic voters does not exist. The Democratic stranglehold that supposedly they had on black voters, that has been wildly overrated. These exit polls are evidence that Republicans can, in fact, that they can make ground with particular demographic groups that supposedly they had forgotten about. I mean, this is amazing, amazing stuff. And it came from Donald Trump, right? The guy who they were calling a wild racist for years on end.
You can wish.
Yeah, so that error, right? What happened was that the Shiawassee County accidentally added a 0 to their vote total, right?
Oh,
and so it was reported briefly, and Trump was right to, everyone who was questioning that was right to say, hey, this looks weird because it was in fact an error. Okay, maybe it was an election fraud, but it was misreporting, and that's a big deal.
Right.
So Decision Desk HQ caught that error and corrected it quickly. But, when you have errors at the county level, I don't see why Twitter would be censoring people calling attention to that, right?
Let me ask you this. I think that was an error. So do you think that error would have been corrected if not being called on it?
I mean, that's the question, right? Because whenever you have
what's an extra 0?
Facebook or
I forgot to carry the 1. I always forget some mundane detail. An extra 100,000 is not a mundane detail, Michael.
And it happened to be in one of the most hotly contested states in the union.
Here's another detail from Michigan where on Twitter, some people were looking at the results from Antrim in the clerk's office, and they said there's no way Trump lost this area, right? It was very firmly for him last time around, and so a local reporter, Zach Gorchow, called them up, and they're reviewing the numbers and said there are discrepancies. It seems like the numbers were transposed, that they got Trump's numbers and Biden's switched.
Right.
And so he said they'll be corrected soon. So it's a staunchly GOP area. So that's going to result in
And they
several
just
thousand more
they just
votes.
happen to swap them.
Yeah,
They happen to actually pull a little switcheroo. Well, we
Yeah.
added a zero, and with that one where we said that Biden won and Trump lost, it was the opposite of what we said.
And there are no, there are no
And then you say, "Hey, it's the
corresponding,
opposite of what you say," and Twitter says misinformation. Then we say, "No, it's not." And they say, "It's too late. There's a bird feeder in Jack Dorsey's beard. Why don't I go check that out?" And I'm like, "I'm not interested in Jack Dorsey's bird feeder, though he gets a lot of hummingbirds. So I want to know what he's using. Is it sugar water? Does he put a little bit of honey in there? I don't know, but it doesn't seem to attract the squirrels, but it attracts the hummingbirds. So Jack Dorsey's doing very well with the beard bird feeder game." But that's not really important right now.
Yeah.
What's
Well,
important is
yeah.
the election.
Right. These errors, at least I haven't seen any examples of them going in the opposite direction.
Right.
Where it's like, oh, it really looked good for Trump, and then, oh, it turns out it was a
Yeah.
typo.
And by the way, we are going to be crowdsourcing.
Democrats lost 200,000 voter registration in Pennsylvania to the Republicans from 2016. I mean, Donald Trump had 2.9 million votes to Hillary in 2016. He's looking at about 3.3 million right now, an increase of 400,000 votes, and it's looking like he might actually lose Pennsylvania. I mean, as we talk right now, Biden has passed him, and it really shouldn't have happened. Trump was up by 600,000 to 700,000 votes when I went to bed Tuesday night, or would have been, I guess, early Wednesday morning. So whereas we watched that lead when I woke up, the lead for Trump dissipate in Wisconsin, even Michigan, I said, well, there's no way that Biden can make up 600 to 700,000 votes in Pennsylvania. And he did. And he did it through 1.1, 1.2, 1.5 million, maybe, mail-in ballots. Josh, for him to have made that up, he would have had to have won minimum 80% of those mail-in ballots. 80%. Okay. And I know some people are saying, well,
There's
mail-in
one
ballots
white
used to
person
Biden.
counting votes.
And a lot of those are from Philadelphia. Yeah. But Trump, look at the numbers. Trump won almost 20% of the vote in Philadelphia, which is a surprise. I didn't think he'd get even 10%. A lot of those mail-in ballots are from Allegheny County, the county of Pittsburgh. Trump won 40% of Allegheny County. And a lot of those mail-in ballots, the national media doesn't know this, are from counties like mine, Mercer, which went for Trump at least 60, 65, maybe 70%. Beaver County, which is the home of fracking, the Shell oil cracker plant, the largest construction project going on in North America right now. That was one of the outstanding counties. York, which is a Republican county, that was one of the outstanding counties. So the idea that Biden could have suddenly won 80% plus of those remaining mail-in ballots, honestly, I don't think it's possible. And
because obviously for these families, this is a very tragic reminder of a loss that they have just recently had to go through. We have two examples that we have talked about and want to talk about today. One is the death of Rosemary Hartle in 2017. The other is the death of Fred Stokes Jr. in 2017. Miraculously, they both voted, which means that the voter file that was used to send out these mail-in ballots was not deduped by death records. We know that underage voters voted in this most recent election. How difficult would it have been to make it clear that nobody would have been mailed a ballot if they had a birth date after a certain year? We know that in this area, which has been gripped with the idea of an economic shutdown, that over 100,000 people left. Yet, through our due diligence, we've been able to find that at least 9,000 of them voted in this election. Non-Nevadans voting in Nevada. How hard would it have been to simply go through the available databases to dedupe all those who had moved away from the voter files before these ballots were mailed? We have, over the last couple days, had many brave people call us who have witnessed tampering, who have witnessed wrongdoing. These are brave whistleblowers. These folks worked in the counting center, were involved in the tallying, and Fox News recently reported that one of these whistleblowers had to quit, and I'm going to just use the male pronoun, had to quit his job after he worked on about 14,000 ballots when he would raise objections to clearly improper ballots. He was told by his supervisor to put them through the process and count them anyway. This whistleblower believes that there were other such employees who were also uncomfortable with the fact that when they could see clearly objectionable ballots, they were still forced to put them in the tally. These ballots can never be taken back out of that tally. These ballots, there's no way to remedy ballots that were put in an improper way. A second whistleblower we have not talked about before described leaving on, and I'm going to use the male pronoun again, leaving on his lunch hour. And while he was on his lunch hour, he decided to exercise around the counting center. While he was walking, he noticed a van pulled up at the center marked Biden-Harris. The doors of the van were open, ballots were clearly visible, ballots were opened with letter openers, and ballots were filled in and resealed in envelopes.
No integrity.
These people who were involved in this activity then decided to create a human shield around what they were doing in the van. It's important for you to understand that as we are coming and making public, it's important for you to understand that as we are making this information public, we are on the outside looking in. I've never experienced an election where the idea of observing the count was considered out of bounds. But yet I think it is clear that with the evidence we're presenting, that if we had more information and this was a more regularized and legal process, we would be able to tell you even more. As I said, dead people voted in Nevada. One of those people who voted was Rosemary Hartle, God rest her soul. We have a friend of the family, Marianne Rumbola, who would like to talk to us now.
I got a call from some fellow Texas lawyers who are actually in Michigan.
Okay.
And there's a group of them, men and women, but it was 3 women specifically who were involved, who connected with me. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just here in the last hour.
You women?
And they sent up, yes, they are women.
Mm-hmm.
They do. They have eyebrows. They both raise. Yeah.
Nice.
And so they reached out to say that they had some serious some very serious concerns about what was happening last night. Now I know, even though I was asleep and you guys were awake, messaging about what exactly is going on with the counts in the various states, but there's really no clarity, no ability to really see what's happening.
Right.
And what these ladies were able to do, one of the ladies is actually going to be Skyping in, so if you see that, make sure to bring her on. But they took some photos and videos from Cobo Hall. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right now, called TCF Center, the main convention center in downtown Detroit, where there's a lot of ballot counting, voting, and that type of thing happening. In most of these places, they have security. They have security to make sure that ballots aren't being brought in after a certain time they're checking. The front check here was only COVID and masks, and people were bringing in what should have been only 4 to 6 hour shifts, bringing in huge coolers, huge bags, suitcases, other types of things with no checks whatsoever, while coincidentally, at the very same time, we're seeing spikes in the voting count and all kinds of numbers going in one certain direction.
Yeah.
So I will emphasize, it's not like any of these ladies ran over there and pried open one of the igloos or looked in one of the coolers or looked in one of the suitcases, but rather the lack of institutional security surrounding one of the most controversial districts and counties and voting locations is apparently null. And these ladies have actually tried to raise those issues there with election officials since this morning and have not been able to get any answers.
Wow.
They are being completely ignored. And it raises a lot of questions about what is happening for the institutional security at these key voting spots.
Well, so at absolute worst, it is complete and it's negligence, I guess, really.
Well, it's
Severe.
it's huge. It's certainly at the very least negligence, and what we're looking at here is an undermining of the trust that would have in that particular system. I mean, we've heard from folks on the left who are saying, "Oh, you know, how are we going to trust the system? How are we going to know what's happening?" But even at the most basic security at main voting locations and vote counting, you're letting people come in and do things that really cast a question and a doubt about what's happening.
Legally, is that even allowed? Isn't there supposed to be a process to make sure that there are checks and security issues? You know, the security safeguards.
Absolutely. That's every single one of these locations is supposed to have kind of reasonable safeguards. And it depends on the location, the type of place. But if election workers are allowed, or people who are simply allowed into the space are not being checked, their IDs are not being checked, they're not vetted, the things that they have are not being vetted, then we're really raising a question in these particular jurisdictions, particularly when you see at somehow 4:30, 5:30, 6 a.m. in the morning, a huge number of votes for one side. All of a sudden,
by the way, when they were supposed to
making
stop
it on
counting.
the ledger.
We had to stop because they said we're going to stop counting. We're like, oh, I guess they're going to, and they said we're going to start again tomorrow at 10, I think is what they said. And then all of a sudden,
In 1
an
hour,
hour later, there's a huge spike specifically in this area. So you guys let me know when we have that person on Skype, but let's go to are we going to start with the videos or the pictures
I
first?
got videos here.
Okay, so let's go to the videos. This is in Detroit. These are the ballots, but all these ballots for Santa Claus. Oh yeah, I know that spot.
So these are pretty raw.
Yeah, these are pretty raw. So how long are these videos?
This one's 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay. So let's right here. Okay. All right. So let's look at this. So So right here for people who are watching, again, we're just getting this. These are people bringing them in coolers. There's no one around.
That looks like a
folks.
radio.
That does not look like a bustling ballot counting operation. That looks like
dark.
That looks like the kind of place where Hunter Biden would find his next fix.
And one of the things is there's, certainly a lot to be happening. Wayne County has a lot of votes, but it's the dead of night. The polls have been closed for hours and hours. Where are these? And
they were supposed to stop counting. That's what they said on air.
Right. And what are they doing at this particular moment that they need these type of containers at this particular time?
Wow. Okay. Let's keep fast forward. What was that voice that I just heard?
There's a white van.
Oh, it's someone narrating.
A little cart thing. See?
Wow.
Let's get something out of there.
There's just one guy. Yeah. And he's not even wearing a tie.
So the person who's going to be logging in, her name is Kelly S., and she's a licensed attorney here in Texas, again, up in the Detroit area, who monitoring with some other groups that are part of the Attorneys for Trump organization. They're just there monitoring, making sure that things get done correctly.
It's a wagon.
And you're going to see wagons and
That's
other
a wheel wed wagon.
strange implements. So this is either a horror movie or something worse.
Wow. I can't. I mean, you wouldn't be able to trust that just because some ballots could fly off the back. That's a guy in a WrestleMania T-shirt with a KB Toys wagon.
Wow. So he's
I was
bringing
joking
these.
about the radio flyer.
No, but yeah, you're
That's
right.
actually
That's
a
the
radio
radio
flyer.
flyer.
You got the nice brand. On brand.
Yeah, the good thing. Yeah, that's name brand.
Good for him.
Wow.
They spent
So-
the extra
so
20
he's-
bucks.
So think of the different points here where there's no security. There's no security. First off, we have no idea how these things got into the van. There's no one there right now escorting him from the van. There's no one meeting him as he brings it into there. Like you would think that there should be a human conveyor belt of people. It should look like American Gangster when they're all cutting the cocaine naked, so that you're sure they don't have anything in their pockets. And this guy's just walking in. There isn't any kind of official there for hundreds of yards.